Alright, back to another album review. It's been 3 weeks since the last time I reviewed an album from Deftones, and today's review is on Gore. That's the 8th studio album from Deftones. Now, this album was self-produced with help from Matt Hyde. Of course, Matt Hyde had previously worked with Deftones on Koi no Yokan, which I talked about last month. Matt also did the mixing for this album. The album was recorded at Megawatt Recording in Studio City, California between 2014 and 2015. Before it was released on April 8th, 2016 under Reprise. The album was originally going to be released on September 25th, 2015. Was pushed back to November of that year as the songs were being mixed. It was delayed even further until finally being released on April 8th, 2016. Before recording started, Chino Marino was touring with this side project called Crosses in support of their debut album, which I reviewed last week. Meanwhile, the rest of the band had begun writing new material for a follow-up to Koi no Yokan. It isn't just alternative metal and experimental rock that this album touches upon. It's mainly centered around space rock, with some elements of post-metal. This isn't the first time Deftones touched upon space rock, as they also touched upon that genre on Saturday Night Wrist, which I reviewed a while back. And I read that there were creative tensions between Chino Marino and Stephen Carpenter when this album was being recorded. I also read that Sergio Vega ended up using a Fender Bass 6 during recording to try and push the band's music into new sonic territory. It can also help the music sound heavier. Of course, this is a bass guitar that has 6 strings instead of the traditional 4, as you can see on screen. Also, this would be the last Deftones album where Stephen Carpenter would use an 8-string guitar. More on that next time. Chino even said in an interview with Kerrang on May 15th, 2015 that songs have different moods. He also mentioned that this album is neither happy nor angry. I think he means that the album is somewhere in the middle when it comes to the mood. Now it's time to talk about the songs. This album starts with Prayers/Triangles. It's actually the first single from this album. It was released on February 4th, 2016. The song serves as the album's lead single. There was a music video made for the song that Charles Berquist directed. There's going to be a link to it in the description. The video is very trippy to say the least. I like how atmospheric the song sounds. So much so that it's actually one of my favorite songs from Deftones. There is also a remix of the song that the synthwave artist Contruz made. Overall, this is a great song. We're only getting started. Up next is Acid Hologram, which is another song with an atmospheric feel to it. Of course, that's what space rock and post-metal can do. The next song is Doomed User, which is the second single from this album. The single was released on March 16th, 2016. Followed up with Geometric Headdress. It's actually one of my favorite songs from this album. It's followed by Heart/Wires. The song was released as a single on April 4th, 2016, which was 4 days before the album was released. The song is the primary reason why there were creative tensions between Chino Marino and Stephen Carpenter. Stephen mentioned that the song made him think of Wild Bill from Silence of the Lambs, and that he just didn't feel it. He also mentioned in an interview with Rolling Stone that he had to embrace his quote, "inner psycho rapist to come up with the part and get into it." I never thought about it that way, but the song still turned out great. Pitura, Infamente, Xenon, and El Mural are after that. And these are all good songs that fit within the overall tone of the album. The next song is Gore, which obviously shares the same name as the album. We followed that up with Phantom Bride, just my favorite song from this album. I'll even go as far as to call it one of my favorite Deftones songs. It was released as a single on June 7th, 2016, which was almost 2 months after the album. What's really awesome is the fact that the song features a guitar solo from Jerry Cantrell, who is best known for being the lead guitarist / secondary vocalist for Alice in Chains. I think it's really awesome that Deftones got Jerry to perform on the song. And I honestly think that he's one of the best guitarists of the modern era. He's also a damn good singer as well. And the song also made history by being the first Deftones song to have a guitar solo. You can thank our good friend Jerry for that. Now, this album ends with Rubicon, which I think is an appropriate song to conclude this album, considering that the song has a very heavy sound and tone. I read that this album was received exceptionally well from critics, and rightfully so, considering the fact that it has an 81 on Metacritic. In fact, the ratings that the critics gave this album range from a 7 out of 10 to 9.5 out of 10. Some of the critics praised this album for pushing boundaries with its experimentation, and the fact that Deftones went full space rock this time around. Now, this album was originally expected to sell between 38,000 and 43,000 copies within the first week. That estimate went up to 55,000 and 60,000. In the end, it sold over 69,000 copies in just the first week. It even debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200. It also debuted at number 1 in Australia and New Zealand. This makes this the highest charting Deftones album since their self-titled album from 2003. It's also their highest sales since Saturday Night Wrist from a decade earlier. As for my opinion on this album, I think this is a great album overall. It's not as good as Diamond Eyes or Koi no Yokan, but I do enjoy it for what it is. It's really interesting that Deftones would go full space rock this time around, while also touching upon post-metal. The fact they brought in Jerry Cantrell to do a guitar solo on Phantom Bride is definitely a match made in heaven, since Jerry, in my opinion, is one of the best guitarists of the modern era. I highly recommend this album. Now's the part where I question you. Have you listened to Gore? If so, what are your thoughts on it? What's your favorite song from it? Do you think it was a good idea for Deftones going to full space rock and post-metal for this album? How do you feel about Jerry Cantrell performing a guitar solo on the song Phantom Bride? Let me know in the comments. If you like the video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to hit the notification bell to notify future uploads. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon with another review.